Don't ding dong ditch. I know this advice would probably be reaching people who are far past the age where ding dong ditching is viable as an outdoor activity. But if I'm not, let me give you some advice. If you're out there thinking to yourself, what about ding dong ditching? Let me tell you, don't. And I have unfortunately, more than one experience in my life to back up that. Ding dong ditching, and for here on out, I'm going to call it DDD, was something that while I was young, I had I wouldn't say an obsession, but it was my version of sneaking out. I think every kid has something that they do in their youth that they aren't supposed to do, and they know they would get into a lot of trouble if they did it. Some kids take that to the extreme. Other kids have very relaxed versions of that. I found myself somewhere teetering towards the top and to the middle. And what I did was, for some reason, me and a good friend of mine, because he always spent the night with me, would go out late at night after my parents, my mother had gone to bed, and we would wake up and we would sneak out the front door or out our back window, and we would roam the neighborhood in the wee hours of 1 to 2 a.m., and we would ding dong ditch. We actually had a system to it. We started classifying houses in our neighborhood, and we had like threat levels and reaction levels depending on how bombastic of a reaction was given to us by the house. We started creating neighborhood like cryptids and stuff like that. Individuals in the neighborhood who gave us specific reactions that, being a 12-year-old little nuisance we were looking for. And it was a time of terror for the area that I lived in that unfortunately I can't go back to take back, but what I can do nearly almost a decade and some change later, I can talk about and feel bad about and ultimately laugh about, because some of the things that I did and got up to while doing this ding dong ditching ended up, they say that karma is a bitch. Pardon my French, but it's true. Karma is a dish best served cold, much like its cousin revenge. And in most of the cases, in the cold December nights that we were sneaking out, it was served to us pretty cold. Now, I would say about 80% of the time, because I to my knowledge, we probably only did like actual ding dong ditching. And we'll get into some of the other stuff that we did, but we probably maybe about 10 times. So it wasn't like it was a serial thing, because it was something where like over these 10 times was like over a period of like 3 or 4 years. So it was definitely enough for a reputation to get built in the neighborhood that we lived in. And I'll talk to you in a second why that thankfully we had cover. But it wasn't anything where we were like hitting people's house every single night, something like that. I don't think, we were just doing it like that because we were kids. We had no thought at all. But because of the area that we lived in, which was like the backwoods of a community, so people were pretty far spread. Like there would be a whole block of woods before you'd kind of hit up it. Now it was still set up in a neighborhood like style, so you got rows of streets and long streets interconnecting. So it was pretty easy for a group of kids, young kids, to get around, know where the house is at, and moreover track down other houses. That, and combined with the infrequency, because it was something where we would do it like 1 week or so, and like we wouldn't again get up the next day and do it. It'd be like 2 weeks from then until we would go back and strike the neighborhood again. So there was a grab bag of reasons on why we never got into real trouble, but there was certainly a few times that we got caught doing what we did. And miraculously, due to the luck of the heavens, we were able to make it out. And I want to talk to you about two of those stories today. One of them being kind of our wake-up moment. I don't know if I want to tell that one first or last. And the second one revolving more of like some type of Monty Python skit. Something you would see in a dry British comedy. But we'll go ahead and start with the birthday party. So before we get into it, there's something that you got to know about my birthday parties. I've had a lot of birthday shenanigans. It's something that I've even thought about making another video about, which I might still in the future, but I am stealing a story from that video. So, and there's still plenty of stories in that regard, but I figured talking about the ding dong ditching would be a little bit more interesting, thinking about the two stories that I have connected to the topic. And this was I do believe this was the last birthday party my mother was alive, so it had to be my 12th or my 11th birthday party. And the things that you got to know about my B-days is that they were very popular. My mom was a hoster. She loved hosting things. She if she could host it, she would do it. I'm talking Thanksgiving, Halloween parties, Christmas parties. One time, and this is a true story, she hosted a hurricane party where a lot of, yep, I know, and it's more common for anybody who's living down here in the big FL. But she hosted a hurricane party, funny enough. And I shit you not, if it wasn't for that hurricane party and her obsession over planning and snacks and resources and everybody having a good time, how bad that hurricane got, and I believe it was Hurricane Matthew, or at least in the area that we were at, like the whole neighborhood was flooded. A bunch of people, instead of weathering it at their house, they came to weather it over at our house because my mom was fucking barbecuing and had, 4 generators going and all different types of stuff. She ended up basically like saving half of the neighborhood. My mom's ability to host, certainly her reputation preceded herself, and that worked into her 2 most favorite things, which is hosting and her children. And not in that order. It would definitely go her children, then hosting. And that's what made my birthdays so important. That combined being able to put on a production and moreover make it about her children. So from the time that I can remember, from when I was a little kid, I always had very extravagant birthdays with all different types of stuff. And from around the age of like 6 or 7, my mother would always buy me. And I know I'm incredible. And I think about this. This is one of the the best memories that I have going throughout my childhood. My mom would always, and I didn't get it every year, not every year, just a majority of the years. My mother would get a gigantic bouncy castle plus the bouncy slide. I don't know if she had a connection. I don't know if she knew somebody. I don't know what the deal was, but if we were getting the bouncy castle, we were getting the bouncy slide. All of this to say, my mother's birthday parties were not just famous among the adults who were enjoying cocktailed beverages and basically a free daycare for 2 or 3 days, however long my mom was letting my friends stay over, but they were also very popular with the kids. Kids loved coming to my birthday parties. It got so infamous at the very end of the stretch of my big birthday parties that kids were just showing up that I didn't know. People would know about it because I'd talk about it at school, and they would just show up. Neighborhood kids were just showing up, which never was too big of a deal because of just how fun it was. And, as a kid, for me at least, it was always a more the merrier type thing. I always really enjoyed having. And now, don't get me wrong, it did lead to some crazy moments, which I could talk about in another video, but this isn't about the crazy moments specifically at my birthday party. This is about when I had contracted almost 13 kids, and it doesn't sound a lot when you say the number out loud, but think about 13 children in your yard right now. I want you to look outside, open your window, take a look at your lawn, and think about 13 children standing out there and feel about how you would feel about what's going to come next. But I contracted 13 kids to go ding dong ditching. And here's the bubble, ladies and gentlemen. Let's pop it. In the middle of the day, I don't know, I do know, because after doing some thinking about it, what had happened is that we all wanted to go ding dong ditching because me and my good friend who had been ding dong ditching quite a few times at this point in my neighborhood was talking it up the entire time. Because we were like, oh my God, we have so many kids. This is about to be a freaking Children of the Corn moment. Like, we're going to bring all these kids out. We're all going to go ding dong ditching together, which logistically is a horrible idea. But thinking about the epicness of it all as the 11, 12-year-olds that we were hyped. So we, middle of the day, some of our gooder friends were ending up having to go home early, and they wanted to go ding-dong ditching. So that kind of spurred all of us up into the idea of, why don't we just go right now, where, it's about 5 or 6 o'clock in the afternoon, literally when everybody's getting home, is awake, and is in their kitchen. It's about 5 o'clock in the afternoon. Why don't we go ding dong ditching now? And of course, as all of the kids are already really hyped for this, when that, opportunity got presented, they were like, oh yeah, let's go and do it. Sorry, I got distracted by something that was going on outside. But to cut to the chase, we all decided that 5 o'clock in the afternoon, that's the time that we're going to go do it. So we set off. We made some excuse about wanting to go out and take a big walk together, which my parents were, pretty cool and honestly trusting of my judgment. And so they were like, yeah, sure, go for it. So we took her to a big walk. And again, the neighborhood was the type of neighborhood where it was big enough that, again, maybe it probably in most people's eyes would be safer in a suburb, but maybe in my parents' eyes, it's kind of an idea where it's like, it's the middle of the woods. Who's going to come and get them? But it was still a neighborhood layout. So, we could walk down the street and literally see the grid and the rows and the street signs to come back, etc. So they let us go, and we all went. Out we did, all 13 of us. And wouldn't you know it, it was the very first house that we get to that the shit hits the fan. And I mean hits the fan, chops into slices, splings on the wall. The first house that we go to, now again, I would have been on the front lines. I would have been very happy to be on the front lines, being one of the more experienced ones here, okay? So I'm not a coward. But the very first house we went to, there were so many kids eager to be the ones to get up there that I actually happened to be in the back lines during this engagement. The house was like a white house with a deck, probably a medium-sized deck with no overtop, but it did have guard railings, and it led out to a pretty decently sized lawn that was on the street, and this was the kind of the hub of the little neighborhood, which, again, our tactical planning was freaking Genghis Khan over here. But this was the house, like basically in the middle of the hub, also in the most like seeable part. So in the center of the neighborhood, there was most of the houses, and there was about 3 or 4 houses that did coalesce on one another, and they all like sat there with one another. And we decided to do the house that was literally the most open, had zero tree cover. We were just, I don't know. We were flipping hooligans is what we were. We were damn hooligans. Well, 4 or 5 of my attack boys go and set out, and they get up there on the porch. And the rest of them, because, by God, our spacing was terrible, were kind of strangled out like a gaggle of geese behind the like 3 main kids who were going up there. And the 3 kids who were going up were and I'm not going to say their names out loud, but it was my good buddy, the one who did most of the ding dong ditching with me, another kid who lived down my street, which we'll call him Jay, and one other kid that I can't remember. I just do remember them being 3 kids up there. So gaggle of kids all trailing behind the main 3. Me and my other good buddy are sitting next to the road kind of watching this operation go down, and the rest of the kids are again like spread about, some near the road, some near the bushes. Right when Jay gets close up to the door, he goes and to knock on it, and it just swings open. I remember it was like watching, in my little eyes, it was like watching a wizard's portal open up. That's like the fear, and I thought that he was like some long arms were going to come out and grab his ass and yank him inside. The moment I saw that door open up, I knew we were cooked. All of the rationality that I should have been having about the decisions that I was making up to that point just kicked in like a mule. And I was like, oh, shit. So me and my buddy who were standing on the road jumps into the fucking bushes. We're gone, okay? We're like, you know what? Every man for themselves at this point. And that was the sentiment that a good 60% of the kids who were in the yard shared, because they just began to scatter. Absolutely no suaveness. At least me and my other buddy were close enough to the woods that I don't think... I don't want to spoil it, but I don't think the person who was inside the house could see us, but she definitely could see, and I'm trickling, she definitely could see the 6 or 7 kids who were standing in her yard, now booking it, like fucking gazelles, booking it out of her yard. Well, who stepped out to greet my good friend Jay was an elderly old lady. She had to be 60 or 70, and I'm talking good old puffy, all white hair, I'm peeking through the bushes. I'm realizing that we're over here hitting civilians. It's bad. She starts talking to Jay, and the conversation they were having was inaudible for me. Now, thankfully, later on, I got told what they were saying. But what I could see was my good buddy under the porch, because she had an open. It was just the post that held the porch up, and under it, you could get under it. And I guess what he decided to do, and instead of run, which hell, it probably was a good idea if the whole thing wasn't mute in the first place, was he barrel rolled up off of the stairs onto the ground and then under the porch. So he's sitting there, and I'm watching, and I mean, he's staring at us in the tree lines. We're looking at him. He's probably at this point had watched his reinforcements run away like a damn fish getting the tank tapped on, and most likely shit in his pants. I felt bad for the guy, and this was tense for us. It was like a hostage negotiation, all right? I'm watching this, and I'm like, oh, my God, how are we going to get them out of here? But after about maybe not even kidding, like 30 seconds of conversation with my good, the Jay, the man who went on, knocked up on the door. I say the man, again, we were 11. She smiles and nods her head at him, and they shake, palm, they shake palm hands, like you do with a fair lady. And he walks off, walking back towards our location with a gleam and a beam on his face. Once he got back over there, we're like, oh my God, what happened? And at this point, this is where my good friend then, after she goes back inside, does another barrel roll and dips out of the bottom of the porch. Well, this kid, which stand by me, came up with an, albeit hard to prove because of what the hell we were doing, but a very believable in a way excuse for why the hell he was up on her porch with the fucking SWAT team behind him. He told her that they were looking for their dog, and she believed him. He said that they were looking for their dog, and that he came up with some bullcrap dog story about a dog, and that if she sees any, just let him know. And that was it. That was enough to buy our way out of that. Now, I think there are a lot of facets at play there. I don't just think that it was, her being kind enough to ignore the shenanigans, because I think anybody's kindness meter begins to reach a point. Like, it's one thing when you catch 2 or 3 kids or even some teenagers, but I'm telling you, we had a small platoon of children, at our disposal trying to ding dong this woman's house. So I don't think she was just cutting us a break. I think her geriatric nature, which is the worst way of putting that, might have been to our advantage. I think that maybe she just didn't see all of the children who were running away from her house at 5 o'clock in the afternoon on a Sunday, Florida afternoon. But either way, we all made it back. None of the parents figured out, and nobody got snatched up by some fucking gremlin who was going to, yank your soul out, which you might be like, oh, well, who would do that? Well, that brings us into our next story, which, while albeit it is the funnier story, it is so damn hot in this room right now, I might have to tell it quick. But we'll see. It's also, I'm trying to keep this video length down a little bit instead of, because my last video was like 42 minutes. And this is one of those things where it's like, it's hard for me to listen to anybody for 42 minutes. Even if the content is really good and very high production, it's hard for me to do it. So I'm trying to knock it down, but I'm still going to probably be here yapping for close to 30 to 40 minutes. But let me tell you about this. So that was that, it was a time to be alive. And moreover, it was one of the experiences in my life, of which there is many, where I have no idea how shit just worked out. It's like, that should have been some comeuppance. Like, she should have been out there with a damn broom and a phone calling the fucking police. And then the police would have showed up and figured out there was a birthday party going on 5 minutes down the road. And the call that they just got about a group of, freaking 12-year-olds roaming the neighborhood doing ding dong. Yeah, well, we can all see where the breadcrumbs trail there. But speaking of a story of breadcrumbs, There was a night where Batman died. There was a night where Joker won. Where my hubris and my friend's hubris finally put a kibosh on the whole ding-dong ditching. Now, I can't exactly remember. I assume that this happened after the fact, or this might have happened before the birthday party. Maybe that was another reason we went on the birthday party, is we felt more confident. Now we had more people, and maybe, hell, that's why we did it in the daylight. But let me tell you all about this. There was one night that me and my good friend did our normal routine. This time there was no pack of wolves. It was just us two. About 11 or 12 o'clock at night, I could hear my mom in the other room through the thin walls. So I knew. I saw the bat signal. It was time. I knew it was time to get out of there. So we opened up our back window. We crawled our way out of it, and we started walking down the street. Now, the first bit of ding-dong ditching is always the best. You know, that's not exactly what it's the most thrilling when you finally get out the window. So right before you go and do it, you know, you're excited. You haven't seen the houses yet, but you're on the hunt. You're on the prowl. And so we did. Now, there was one house that we called the Crazy Lady's house. And the reason we did is because she would give us the most reaction out of anybody. Most of the time, there was no reaction, or at least no reaction that we could see. And we hit up a few houses in the neighborhood. We got a pretty good testing sample of people. But there was one, but most of what I was saying with that is that most of the time we didn't actually see the reactions because we were too busy hauling ass down the street after we fucking knocked on their door. I mean, taking off. There's only a few times in very few cases that we would get to see reactions. And most of them were when there was an after effect. Now, there was this place that we called the Crazy Lady. She was a level 4. You know, she was very, very difficult. Why? Because after about 2 or 3 attempts of our shenanigans, she had caught on. And moreover, she had gotten tired and gotten pissed with all the bullshit that was going on. This is one of those people where, again, how the hell did nobody call the cops and figure out it was us? I don't fucking know. But what she would do is we'd knock on her door, and first she would come out and she would sit on her front porch, and we would see her do that. And then if you were ballsy enough to go for number 2, she would get in her truck, and she would start driving around and trying to find you. She'd have a big spotlight. Dude, that was like activating a freaking boss moment, bro. That was like, you know how hyped we were when we got to freaking level stage 2 on the Crazy Lady boss? We were hyped. So she was a big target for us. So you know what they say, don't give them an inch or they'll take it a mile. Well, that was basically what we were doing. But there was one particular night, the night that I was just mentioning, that we had gotten out, we were on the prowl, and we knew exactly where we were going to go first. We were going to go to the Crazy Lady's house. Now, I am embarrassed to mention that we had a few times done a little bit more than ding-dong ditching. I cannot remember if this night was a night that we had egged somebody's house. I don't think it was. It could have been, but I don't think it was. But the Crazy Lady's house did receive a few eggings. Horrible, horrible children. A horrible thing to do. I hope to God the statute of limitation on throwing eggs at people's houses is up after literally almost 10 years now. However, if it's not, please don't press charges. I'm so sorry. If you find me and you hear of this Crazy Lady and or her knight in shining armor, which actually I have a flip. Whoopsie. I actually know who these people are. I'll talk about that a little bit later on. But my offer still stands. If you see this video and you find out that it was me, I'm sorry. And I will come and do some pressure washing. I'm a pretty good pressure washer, so I'll come and do some pressure washing. That's my vow. But it only goes for the Crazy Lady. I'm pretty sure we only egged her house. Everybody else, other than the guy that we TP'd his tree, I'll help you do some lawn trimming. But anyways, I'm sorry, I'm getting off track. What I was trying to say is I can't remember whether or not it was a night that we had egged, but if it was, we certainly got our comeuppance for it. So we go up to the house, we do our normal routine, we knock, we bang, we get them stirred up. They're outside. Now, I'm pretty sure that this might have been, and that's why we felt so confident. Because by this point, we knew their MO. We knew that they would come out, and then they would possibly even get in their truck, and they would come looking for us. So we knocked on their door or did whatever we did, and we took off down the road, about a road down. I'm not going to go through all the metrics of how the roads looked and stuff like that, because one, it really wouldn't add too much, and it would be kind of confusing. What you do need to know is that the road that was next to them was the road that we were on. It was covered by some tree clearing, so they couldn't see the road down. Now, we had run down the road, gotten on that road, and we hid in the woods. Now, we hid in the woods for a good 10, 15 minutes. We were waiting to see if they were going to get in their truck. We heard them yelling and screaming a little bit, but we couldn't see what they were doing. But after time passed, of course, kids get bored, and we were like, oh, I guess they're not doing anything. They're not coming out. So we stepped out the bushes and got back on the dirt road. And when we did, I didn't see him when I came out, and I can't imagine Hayden did either. But at the end of this long dirt road was a street light. And when I looked over, my friend Hayden's jaw was on the floor. He looked like he just saw a ghost. And shit you not, I turn around, and about, I'm not good with distance, less than, a quarter of a mile. God, that's a horrible distance. That's probably a lot longer than I'm thinking. But not too far away, but definitely far enough away for it to be menacing. He was a smaller stature in the eye line of the picture of what I was seeing. But there laid a man, standing, tall, big dude, under the street lamp, to where his view, now I don't know if this fucker was doing this shit purposely. He could have been, and if he was, bravo on you, because that was some psychological horror our little 12-year-old ass was not ready for. Because he was standing under a street light in the way where the light was obscuring his complexion. You could only see darkness. That was he was a silhouette, and he was just standing. Now, while we couldn't see him very well, what we could hear, because it was dead in the middle of the night, was him like a fucking bull, just my buddy took off. I love him to death. His loyalty is undeniable, and I do not fault him not even a second for doing what he did. But he didn't give me any warning. He didn't tell me that he was leaving. I just felt the wind of my sleeve just, and he was gone. Now, once he saw like a predator, like a damn lion, once the man saw my buddy take off, that was like that was his cue. He knew. He was like, okay, it's time. So he picked up speed, and I'll tell you what, for a big guy, he took off and was coming fast. Now, my little docile brain, for some reason, I thought to myself, I can talk this out with him, which I don't even think that's what I was thinking. I think I was just having a fight or flight moment, and my body was just choosing not to do either, and I tried to do some weird talk method. But as he was charging at me, I just put my hands up and was like, whoa, it's okay. It's okay. Like I'm staring at this gigantic rhino of an individual who has now picked up to a terminal velocity. Not for him, for me. He touches me, I'm fucking gone. And he's charging at me full speed. And I'm sitting there like I am the dude from Jurassic World, freaking. I don't know what the hell I was doing, but thankfully, two things kicked me into gear. One, fight or flight, finally kicking in. And then two, the blood-curdling run sorry for the ear rape, run coming from my buddy who had taken off down the fucking street. Once I heard that and heard the horror in his voice, I knew. Yeah, I knew it was time to go. And so I did. I dipped out. I left. And I turned my little feet around and I started booking it the other direction. And now here's a true story for you folks. Here's something that scared the wits out of me, and I still feel the hair on my neck going up. He got close enough that not only could I hear what he was saying, which is like, I'm going to get you, I'm going to kill you, you little motherfucker, which again, whether or not he would have done it. If he would have actually killed me, that would have been an oh no. But I really do not fault this individual for being that upset. But not only could I hear what he was saying, but I had just picked up enough speed to outrun him when he had gotten to me. Because remind you, he had reached full speed, and I do think that trek coming down the road, because he came pretty far, winded him a little bit, all to my advantage. However, I had just picked up enough speed that his hands literally almost grasped my shirt. I could feel them almost fucking get my shirt. That's how close he was to get me. But thankfully, I was just quick enough, and I took off. My buddy took the right at the next road. I took the next right, and I just kept running and running and running and running until I got back to the house. And man, oh man, oh man. Thank God I did get home, and thank God the cops never showed up or questioned my mom or looked for us, and thank God I didn't get caught. Thank gosh that person who came out of their house, that poor elderly woman who came out of their house, didn't know, see, or care about what we were doing, because if they did, we were cooked. So that's that. That is some of my stories, and I have more, actually. I have a funny story about ending up happenstance meeting the very man who chased me down the street that night, and kind of getting to take a glimpse into the individuals who probably would have ripped my head off. Not really, they're kind people, not like that, but should have ripped my head off. As well as maybe not ding dong ditching in particular, but crazy stories from my birthday parties or doing other crazy things in my neighborhood, which definitely should have, which I did. I want you to know that I did, other than getting the absolute wits scared out of me, I did eventually get caught one time by my mom, which that's a whole nother funny story. And yeah, I got my good ass beaten. So if anybody's out there where it's like, you should have got your ass beat, I did. Maybe not as much as I deserved. I mean, I got my well-deserved ass beaten there, but it's one of those things where it's like, man, if I would have gotten ass beaten, if I would have gotten whooped for as many times as I had done terrible things to the neighborhood, I probably wouldn't have an ass anymore, or have quite the raw one. Ugh, nasty. But yeah, so I got plenty of stories coming out of that, and I thought just these two stories, one, because they were connected, and two, because they are stories that kind of are similar in nature. I thought that they would be fun to share. I was going to refilm and reshoot the birthday shenanigans. Now I'm kind of put in a weird place because I have decided to just take one of those stories and talk about it individually. But I mean, there's still so many crazy shenanigans. But it's one of those things where the reason I felt compelled to make videos about this is because it's easy topics for me to talk about. And I know that sounds lazy, but what I mean is I want to come on here to hone, and I know this sounds but I don't care, hone my comedy, make videos that are enjoyable watching, and hopefully watch my production value rise. And in turn, I find that a lot of my best work is most likely a oxymoron, done when I am solely invested in what I'm talking about. And stories like these are stories that I've told to my sister, and I've told to my friends, and I talk about, and my friends remember, and they talk about. And so it's just like good old boy tales and stories and stuff like that. And of course, I've done something like the very first video on my channel was my review of Secret Agent. And there's definitely stuff like that. Like, I would love to talk about another video that I want to make, and I might even make recently, is I want to talk about Kane's The Backrooms. I watched that recently, and I thought it was a really cool film, and I have less to say about the theories and all of that stuff. I am familiar with it, but I definitely wouldn't be familiar with it enough to make a video about it. But I would just love to yap about how cool the practical effects were, and the monster, and some of the feelings that I had, and some of the feelings that I had about the film in general, With that type of video, there is an expectation of having a decent opinion, and that's not exactly what I mean. But if it isn't an opinion that's decently worth watching or hearing, then it's just not worth watching or hearing, and that's very subjective. That's not exactly what I mean. But when I'm talking about stories from my childhood, or I'm talking about things that had happened to me recently, like the stuff with Google, it's just so much more not fulfilling, but it's so much more, it's easier for me to delve into fully, into like really give it my mind. So I'm going to talk more stuff, and this is not in a pessimistic way. It's in an optimistic way, but no, nobody's watching. And when people do watch, this would be a great kind of set of things they can base a criteria off of, to give me an opinion on how they feel about my videos and stuff like that. So that's why I'm here talking about ding dong ditching. I know this is self-deprecating, but I know it's not the most interesting videos in the world. I know that the topics, and I'm not a great comedian. I'd love to be a great comedian one day, but I'm not. So my delivery and just talking about stuff is probably not going to land for a lot of people, and the stories themselves can't be interesting enough to really engage a wide audience. Maybe a few people might find it interesting for a variety of reasons, but I can understand where my content in whole isn't going to be super digestible by a lot of people. Excuse me. Drink water. But yeah, but either way, nevertheless, I'm here. I want to make a video about it. It's fun talking about it. And I would like my next video to be something where I am talking more about an IP, or talking about something that I like or I enjoy. And to that regard, I hope to see something like that soon. I got more than just time on my hands. So, you know that's right. As my good coworkers used to say back in the rehab I used to work at, that's right. But, all right. I love you guys. To all of the 0 of you that are watching. And to finish this out, I would just like to say like and subscribe, and hopefully check out a new video that's coming, or check out any of the videos that I've done in the past. If you enjoyed listening to me yap for the amount of time that I have, there you go. You got a place to go. But as always, me and you, we are Mr. Podigy, the both of us. So hopefully I'll catch you in the next one. Bye.